Chapter 27. The Black Tower. Unexpectedly, Anlaman changed his mind. Shaking his head like a rattled drum, he adamantly refused to enter the ruins of Jingjue. He claimed that a companion's death in the desert was an ominous sign, and moreover, Hal-Ig was death from the bite of that strange serpent, bearing a black tumor on its head, was proof of the legend that Allah had forsaken these sands to the devil. Anlaman was deeply devout. Without Allah's protection, even under the threat of death, he would not venture into the ancient city. We had no choice but to reorganize our plan, setting up a camp at the mouth of the valley and leaving him to watch over the camels and supplies. I had originally thought about leaving Fatty behind to keep an eye on Anlaman, just in case the old man decided to make a run for it, abandoning us here. If he fled, it wouldn't matter much to him. But without the camels, the rest of us could very well end up never leaving this place. Then again, I thought he wouldn't likely run off alone given we had traveled this far, and especially since his substantial guide fee was yet to be collected, a sum that could secure his well-being for the latter part of his life. Still, having been too careless in the past and paid the price, I now knew to be more vigilant. So, I grabbed Anlaman's hand and asked, "Old man, how does Allah punish those who lie and break faith?" Anlaman replied with a serious tone, "Well, he would turn their money into sand, even their salt, and all would become sand. Such a person would end up starving to death, just like dying in the black desert, and in the afterlife, they descend into the scorching sands of hell, suffering 1,800 tortures." Hearing his solemn answer, I felt reassured. One advantage of those with strong religious beliefs is their fear of punishment in the afterlife, so they dare not commit actions that would go against their conscience or divine justice. Now, only 7 of us would enter the ancient city, including the still unconscious Yi Sin, who would be carried by Chu Jian. Each of the remaining 5 had to carry equipment, weapons, food, and water bottles, making for a considerable load on everyone. There's a well-known saying in the army, "You're not a soldier if you're not carrying 40 pounds. This means that when soldiers march, they're carrying at least 40 pounds of equipment, and if they're armed with heavy infantry weapons like machine guns, flamethrowers, or anti-tank gear, the load is even heavier. After serving 10 years with the field army and carrying heavy loads, I wasn't personally troubled by the weight. However, Professor Chin and the others were not accustomed to such burdens and had to pack as lightly as possible to enter our final destination, the Jingjue ancient city. The distance from the mountain pass to the ancient city was short, and we arrived at the city gates within the time it takes to eat a meal. The gates had long since collapsed and were unrecognizable, the moat filled in with yellow sand. We entered the city through a breach in the crumbling walls to find silence and ruins all around. The reality was a stark contrast to my imagination, deeply disappointing. From a distance, the streets and houses of the city might have looked imposing, but up close, all were either collapsed or dilapidated. Nothing but sand and rotten wood, broken stones. Where were the treasures of gold and silver that I had envisioned? All that remained were a few broken and decayed enormous wooden posts and beams with their vermilion paint long peeled away, barely hinting at the city's past luxurious splendor. We wanted to examine a few collapsed buildings near the city gates, but to our discovery, although much of them was revealed outside, their interiors were piled with sand up to the rooftops. Legend had it that this city was destroyed by war. A coalition army had broken into the royal palace, and as the battle drew to its end, a black sandstorm buried Jingjue, along with its inhabitants and soldiers, indiscriminately beneath the sand. It wasn't until the 19th century that the moving desert revealed it once again. Our observations matched the legend, except for the absence of mummies, presumably buried beneath the sand. To me, the sight was lackluster, while Professor Chen and the others seemed fascinated by every detail of the ancient city, even spending half a day examining a ruined wall. I had to remind them of our pressing quest. Yi Sin is still ill. Finding help for her is the priority. It seems the residential area of the city is buried under sand. We can't even find a well. Let's check the royal palace. There might be a water source there. Professor Chun slapped his head in realization. How foolish I've been. Saving little Yi is crucial. Let's head to the royal palace quickly. These desert kingdoms are often built where underground rivers rise close to the surface, and some underground palaces even have rivers flowing through them. The palaces are usually located in the very center of the city. Our group sought direction through the ruins, aiming for the center of the ancient city. Fatty said to me, "Old Hu, do you know what I'm craving the most right now? I'd kill for some hominy melon and grapes, or even a slice of watermelon." I'd better stop talking about it. The more I talk, the thirstier I get. My throat is so dry it feels like it's smoking. When we find that underground river, I'm jumping in for a bath first. I responded to Fatty. The life of the Jingjue queen must have been one of luxury. She'd have enjoyed watermelons chilled in the water of an underground river. But even if those watermelons had been preserved until now, they'd probably have turned into watermelon stones by now, and the grapes might have become raisins. Fatty complained. In this godforsaken place where not even a bird would bother to poop, it's hard to imagine people ever lived here. Next time, don't even talk to me about 20,000 American dollars. You could pile up mountains of gold and silver in front of me, and I wouldn't set foot in the desert again. Of all the ways to die in this world, dying of thirst has got to be the most wretched. The mention of dying reminded me of Hal Aikwa, bitten to death by that strange snake. Although his death was quick, I couldn't help but wonder about the pain he suffered in his final moments. The snake was bizarre, with a black tumor on its head, filled with black liquid, split into two and still capable of harming people. It was a type of snake even Shirley Yang had never seen. Who knew if there were more lurking in this city? Our party of 7 navigated through the ruins, avoiding collapsed and sunken areas, until we reached the wide thoroughfares at the heart of the ancient city. Despite being blanketed in sand, the layout of the streets was still discernible. In the vicinity, however, there were no other large structures besides a slanting black tower. There wasn't even a decent house to speak of, just degraded mud walls as far as we could see. Professor Chin suggested that the royal palace might be underground, given the excessive amount of sand within the city. We headed for the black tower to get a better vantage point, hoping to spot an entrance to the underground palace. The base of the tower was buried in sand, as was most of the arched stone doorway. Carved from massive rocks from the Zaglama Mountains, the tower stood 6 stories tall, somewhat tilted but still extraordinarily firm. Besides the rare building material, an unusual black, olive-shaped stone sphere topped the highest point of the tower. Professor Chin, putting on his reading glasses, looked up at the tower for a long time, occasionally using his binoculars, murmuring to himself as if he had just realized something. Curious about his revelation, I wanted to ask him what he hadn't considered before, but the professor had already ducked through the tower doorway, seemingly eager to confirm something. We hurried after him. The tower's walls were densely covered with the unique script of the Ghost Cave people. Each floor harbored a black stone statue. The first floor had a stone sheep, rather unremarkable. The second floor featured a stone human figure, about the size of an average person, with a pronounced nose and deep-set eyes, half kneeling in the tower. Surprisingly, the third floor housed the same type of giant eye stone figures we had seen in the unnamed small city while seeking shelter from the sandstorm. Professor Chen halted us on the third floor to share his conjecture. It seems my prediction was correct. The source of the giant eye stone figures unearthed in various places is indeed Jingjue, and the material is that black stone from Zaglama. Sudi Peng inquired, "Professor, what purpose does this tower serve? Why does each floor have a statue?" Professor Chen hypothesized, "I suspect that this black tower served to manifest the hierarchy of the Ghost Cave people. The statues on each level represent different tiers of status. The first floor's livestock could imply that beneath us, there might be an underground level housing the hungry ghosts of hell. The second floor represents the commoners, including all the Hu people of the western regions, whose status was just slightly better than that of animals, akin to slaves. The third floor's giant eye figures, along with the eye-shaped stone sphere atop the tower, symbolize this culture's veneration of eyes. Let's hurry to the next level and see what, or who, held an even higher status in Jingjue." Fatty speculated, "Even I could guess that much. I bet the next one up is the statue of the queen." He rushed ahead to the fourth floor. Following closely behind, I was surprised by what I found. The statue on this level depicted a figure with the body of a snake and the head of a man, sturdy limbs with beast-like hind legs and human-like forearms wielding a sword and shield. The male face was fierce, with glaring eyes, reminiscent of the wrathful Dharma protectors found in temples inland. Behind its head, there was a black sphere similar to the bizarre snakes in Zaglama Mountains. As Professor Chen and the others joined us, everyone marveled at this strange protector deity of the kingdom. It seems we've found the kingdom's guardian deity. There's also an eye-shaped black sphere on top, reinforcing the Ghost Cave people's belief that eyes are the source of all power. The deity's status is just below the queen's. It seems the queen was indeed deified. Let's continue to the 5th floor to see if we'll find the statue of the queen there.